Okay, so people really seem to like my Stella arrangement and wanted me to talk a little bit about it. And that's really cool because I'd like to. There's a few little techniques and things that I use here which might not be familiar to everybody, but I was really pleased with how they came out. So I'll just talk a little bit about the process. In general, when I record these little solo things, sort of less than 3 minutes long, it usually takes me a lot of takes. I'm not going to lie. But I think that's quite good because what it does is it usually consolidates what I'm going to do in terms of the form of it. And I think that's quite useful. So other people might prefer to plan it out with a pen and paper before they do it, or just practice until they have some idea. But there's something about like running the recorder and then sort of reviewing it and going, that worked well. I didn't think that worked so well, which I find actually quite helpful, provided it doesn't drive me up the wall and I end up just taking... Usually what happens is I have to stop recording, and then when I stop recording, that's the take that I use. Okay? It's really that simple. I never get to the point where I'm 100% happy with it. So yeah, let's talk a little bit about the general approach I took on the tune. So I do a little out of time, free time introduction based on the changes in the melody. And at the very beginning, I just stay on one chord for a little bit, which is this kind of D flat or E diminished sound. And then I go into the tune, I play it out of time, free time. Then I go into more of a tempo. I play the heads, then I play half of the song as a little bit of an improvised solo, then I go back into the head. So the thing that I've really learned by doing solo things is that you can't play the tune enough, but it's quite good to disguise and riff on and vary the tune. But if the tune is in there, then it really works to kind of hold the whole thing together. Whereas I think if you just kind of solo and play, blow on the changes as a solo improviser, then it can sound a bit aimless. And I feel like doing this has taught me a lot about playing jazz in ensembles as well. It's been very interesting working so much on the solo thing. Anyway, so the changes that I use are kind of based a little bit on the original version of the changes, Stella by Starlight. I've done a video on this elsewhere, so I won't go too much into it. Just to say that probably one of the biggest differences is that the first chord is not E minor 7 flat 5 going to A7. It's actually, in this case, an E diminished or a D flat diminished, okay? So I really feel that, therefore, the first chord of this song suits not melodic minor harmony or anything like that, but actually, either it works well as a D minor thing, okay, or it really wants to be some kind of whole half scale, a diminished scale, right? So you don't know what that is. That's just going up. If I go from E, going whole step, half step, whole step, half step, whole step, half step, whole step, half step, until you get back to the octave, right? So I'm thinking of that sound, right, basically. But I use a slightly sideways way into it, which is to do with Jordan Clement's and Stephen Harris's idea of quadrads. I've been working a lot on this kind of stuff over the past couple of years, and it's slowly starting to make its way into my playing, okay? So a quadrad is generally a triad plus an extra note. Okay, so for instance, in the case of this, this is the actual chord from the tune. So it's kind of like a D flat diminished seventh with an A on top. The A doesn't normally belong to the diminished chord, or you could see it as being an E diminished with an A on top, which kind of turns that into, I don't know, so like a sharp 11 or a flat 5 or something. Or if you're looking from the point of view of B flat diminished, it's a major seventh. It doesn't really matter too much. It's just that we're putting the A with that diminished seventh sound. So one really good thing to do is actually just to take an A major triad, and we can play, if I play that over the D flat pats, and that gets us slightly out, or I could play with the E bass, which is what I do on the actual thing. It's weird because you wouldn't think of playing like a second inversion A major triad there, would you? As a way of substituting in for a diminished. But actually it works great. So So the interesting thing is that is obviously to an extent in the real book chart. You know, A7 flat 9, you can play an A triad there. And that sounds great. What we do to make it into a quadrad is we add the B flat. And that makes sense because the B flat comes from the melody. Okay, so if we add the B flat in, you know, you get this lovely, you know, very evocative sound, which is like an A major triad with an added flat ninth. How cool is that? This kind of sound, right? Quite flamenco. I put it over the E bass. That gives us the basic harmony of the first few chords that I play. Turning these into voicings is a little bit more involved, okay? In general, you can't play all of the adjacent notes together. You can't play these three together, for instance. These four, sorry, together, for instance. Because there's just like too many half steps. I run out of fingers. Maybe Ben Monder could do it, but I can't, okay? Maybe Johnny Smith. Okay, so what you do is you end up missing out, and this is again a Jordan Clements thing, you miss the second note out from the top. It's a bit like doing drop voicings or whatever, if you like, or many voicings on the guitar have to have a note missing or transposed down by an octave to make them work. It's just because of the tuning of the instrument. So in this case, you know, if I start on this C sharp here, so B flat, A, and then E, right? So I miss out the B flat. It's the second one from the top. So we get this thing which happens to be a second inversion A major triad. So I miss out the A in this one. Okay. And then it'd be this one. So I miss out the E on this one, the second note from the top. These all become playable voicings, right? And you can also play this one here, like that, right? That'll come in handy later. Okay. And then this will be the next one. Out the C sharp, and you get this. So I play this, yeah, 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 over the E. Sorry, that's a bit louder than it needed to be. Sorry, wrong voice in there. That's it. Notice that these voices are kind of crunchy and interesting, but not unplayable. Okay, and then you've got this one up here. But because of diminished symmetry, I can actually just swap those. Do the same thing up to 3 frets, was it? So, and then, you know, this one, different fingering for the same thing. And that gives you the half whole scale sound. Or the octatonic scale, as people sometimes call it. So that is very cool. I think that sounds a bit like Stravinsky to me. Just going between those two voicing types. They're the same voicings, just different fingerings obviously on different string groups. This one and this one. That one, for instance. Sorry, I can't play it very well on this guitar. But I would move to the next string over just for the sake of easiness. Okay. So those voicings took me a while to learn. I mean, there's loads of different ones for different chords for the John Clements thing, but I really like the way they sound, so I've been making a lot of use of those recently. Okay, going on, so I had to play a little bit of the tune. I'll play something like this, don't I? Something like that. Can't remember exactly what. So this is just like a B major triad, right? And I'm just substituting that in for the F7. Now, one thing I've learned over the years is that the more obvious and the more basic you play a tritone substitution, the better it sounds, right? So triads are really, really good for that. Triads just get like locked right into the sound. So that's all this is. This is the B triad on an F7. And I'm just breaking it up in a slightly interesting way. So instead of going straight up or down, like that, which is kind of predictable, I jump, I skip one out, skip one out, skip one out, skip one out, skip one out. So that's like classic kind of thing. You can hear that in classical music. Also, I sort of learnt it from, you know, traditional jazz clarinetists who play those kind of skipping arpeggios a lot. On the guitar, I think it sounds quite modern. Sorry, I can't actually play it anymore, can I? That's it. Kind of, it's just something, I think it sounds modern because it's unusual for the guitar. It's just something which you don't hear that often. But it's not that hard to play, certainly at that speed. Or at least I don't find it's too bad. The string skipping can be difficult, but I think it's easier if you play it all with downstrokes, weirdly. Okay. And I'm going straight from G minor minor 6th to D minor. Embellishing the melody slightly, if I remember correctly. And then I play some kind of ascending run, going to B flat diminished 7th, and I do this. Oh yes, okay, so this is something I really, really like. So the chord here is like A half diminished going into D minor 7 altered some kind. Sorry, D7 altered. So the melody is that. So I like to use, again, this diminished thing. So this relates to D7. This is the diminished 7th either on the 3rd or upper half step, depending how you like to look at it. So I like to go that way. So that becomes D7 flat 9. And then I just borrow the melody. Keep it going down the scale. This is the scale of like G minor. And then I do something. Can't remember. This is what I do, isn't it? So it goes yada yada yada. That's a really nice movement, but you can go right down the scale, right up the scale if you want. If you want. I love that sort of thing. It's just a way of breaking up the standard kind of diminished 7th sound into something a little less parallel. Okay, and then moving on, I play some, later on in the song, on the G7 flat 13, I play a straight whole tone scale on G. It's like the Pasquale Grasso lick, he does that all the time. Okay, whole tone scales sound great there for some reason. And then we eventually get to the E minor major 7th. So the melody note is very much a D against the E flat minor chord. And then I play a minor major 7th arpeggio, ending up on the melody note again. So that's one way you can embellish the melody with harmony to make it sound more interesting. So I'm still very much foregrounding the melody, which is the D note. And I do something like that, which is just a straight, B flat add 9 chord. No reason to be fancy. And then moving on, I do this kind of a thing. Can't remember exactly, it's something like that, right? So this is, I'm just going to play chord shapes because these are all based on chord shapes. So this is like, again, similar to my diminished borrowing idea. We're taking an E7 flat 9, flat 5 chord, and we're just borrowing that A into it, going down the whole step, and then same thing here. Which is just a way of breaking up the parallelism in those chords. Instead of just going, like this something, or even this, we can make it a little bit less predictable by going, and then I'll tell you about that other bit in a second. Okay, so then I just break those into single notes. Okay, and that's really simple. That's just me just like taking these individual notes and turning into melodies. There's a really far-reaching technique. Again, it's like kind of old-fashioned. Like you hear Charlie Christian doing stuff like this, but it actually sounds kind of modern because it certainly generates more interest. Because if I just play the straight triadic arpeggios, or the tertial arpeggios, should I say? That just sounds kind of boring. But if I actually just take literally the guitar chord shapes, you should know all these shapes, right? And break them up note by note. playing anymore. Yeah, okay. And then you get something much more interesting melodic contour. Then finally, I've got the F sharp in the melody, or G flat, depending how you look at it. And I choose to harmonise that not with the usual F7 flat 9 chord, but with an A13. I really like the sound of dominant chords coming in from half step below and resolving to target majors. I really love that sound. And if it goes in contrary motion, that's pretty cool, right? And then I arpeggiate it like that. I can't remember exactly what I play, but it's something based on those ideas. Cool. And then a little bit later on, I go creep into time, do a bit of time, playing the melody in time with the chords. And it's just like having that under your fingers, so you can instantly put the melody note with the chord. Again, breaking up chords, not just playing them straight, but arpeggiating them to create more interest. Yeah, sorry, I missed that chord there. So it's like that is practice, really. It's just always being able to nail the melody tones with a chord. So your hand is already preparing, for instance, in the first one. The finger you use to play the melody is the one that's appropriate to use if you're just going to drop in a chord. Or alternatively, turn it around and you work out lots of chords where you can have any finger on the melody, and you'll have a chord ready for it. So if you play the first finger, for instance, you're gonna, you can. That's not a very good example. Sorry. If you play something like this, for instance, you can play that, right? Or whatever. You've got a chord ready for that particular finger. Personally, I prefer to try to think ahead. Again, like I could play it there, but then I wouldn't have a chord, right? That's easy for me to do. And I use my little finger there, so I play that. First finger then. And now it's fairly straightforward. Quite a bit of a stretch, that one, if you're going to play it up there, and so on, right? So it's just like that part of the arrangement, I think, is a little bit less involved and contains a little bit less new info from other videos I've done. But yeah, actually, I realise I'm almost running up to 20 minutes now, so that was quite a lot of info just from looking at that arrangement. I hope you find it helpful. If you've got any other questions, please post them below. Thanks for watching.